So we stumbled onto this steam locomotive that we heard in the distance, and we started asking around, and it turns out that here in Portland, Maine is the Maine Narrow Gauge Museum, and they have an operating narrow gauge train that you can ride. It's like $10 a person for adults that we're going to ride here in just about half an hour. When it comes around, it loads on the hour. And here inside the museum, they've got this lovely narrow gauge locomotive, steam-powered locomotive, and several Pullman cars that are beautifully, beautifully restored. Isn't that pretty? All wood sides. I mean, that's a genuine article. And they've even got a caboose. So they have a full train inside here, a locomotive, 3 Pullman cars, and the old wooden caboose. This has since been electrified for electric lights. You can see here, this would have been at the time a kerosene lamp. And then if we swing around 180 degrees, you can see here is the kerosene lamp of the era. It's never been burned, it's brand new, but that's what it would have been. Here is where the conductor or whomever would have ridden. These seats are up this little ladder, and you could sit and they could watch out this upper window above the train. They also carried a certain number of commodities in here. There's a milk can. This is a potato sack that they might have carried mail. Now this is how this train car was heated back in the era where it was in service. It is a cast iron wood stove, like a pot-bellied stove, but this is specifically a caboose stove. And it was vented with a steel pipe right out through the roof, just like in the homes of the day. And the reason I know exactly what this is because my parents owned one at one point that had been on a caboose and had been decommissioned and was sold off. And these lids and doors have latches that lock so that when it's rattling down the rails, nothing pops off or pops open and the fire stays contained. Gorgeous. This one's in perfect condition. That would have kept this room nice and toasty even in the bitter cold winter here in Maine. Now, I don't know if we're supposed to be peeking back here, but I'm going to. Behind this big heavy cloth tarpaulin is a workshop. Complete wood shop, and they are in the process of restoring yet another Pullman car from the era. So these are valuable antiques that they're trying to restore to put on display here in the museum. So you can get at least into part of the interior of one of these Pullman cars. These are the passenger cars. This is all solid wood. It looks like it's probably walnut or some other very expensive hardwood. It's hand carved, beautiful bronze coat hooks. These are original leather seats that were here. And the trains of the day apparently did have, well, they had a sink at the very least. Right here. And again, as we swing around, if we can get enough light, the original heating stove, wood stove, coal stove, would have been used to heat the car. And this was definitely first class traveling because again, you've got all this beautiful carved woodwork, and there is a toilet on board the train. There was actually facilities in the day. Considering in that era a lot of people still had outhouses, this is pretty cool. And then I'm gonna sneak past Bev so she can show you
This is a parlor.
the interior of a Pullman car with the nice padded seats and swivels, beautiful brass light fixtures. I don't know how much you're hearing with the microphone pointed away from you, but hopefully it's reverberating enough you can hear me. Just a beautiful, beautiful example of a Pullman car.
This is called a parlor car.
So another thing they've got here, this is actually a baggage car, or possibly a freight car, but this would have been baggage where people put their steamer trunks and their luggage and whatnot while they were traveling, because there's not a lot of storage where you're sitting. Mail would have been carried here again, a few commodities, but largely baggage for the passengers. Then in the next car, or the front of this car, again, and these are all oak doors, by the way, beautiful work. Another of these railroad stoves for heating the compartment. Because again, remember, Maine is very, very, very cold in the winter. And then just bench seats here. So this would have been coach, probably in that era. Oh, this kind of railroad car was commonly referred to as a combine. Okay? Because it had both the baggage and the seating. Beautiful wood interior. Been a very charming way to travel. I don't know how comfortable it would have been, but certainly very, very charming. Okay, so we've boarded the narrow gauge train here at the Maine Narrow Gauge Train Museum, and we're getting ready to pull out from Portland, Maine. I really don't know how long this ride is, but it's very, very inexpensive. $10 covers admission to the museum, your rail fare, and your parking. So it's, by our standards, certainly a very, very good deal. And they just took the locomotive up and filled up the water tanks, so they had sufficient steam power to get us there, and I saw them shoveling coal in. This is the real deal. And for those of you who don't understand what a narrow gauge is, it just means the tracks are set very, very close together. Back at the inception of the country, railroads built their rails at whatever distance apart they felt was appropriate for them. So it wasn't until much later in the development of our nation that rail gauges, the distance between the tracks, was standardized so that all rail cars could run on everybody's different tracks. So narrow gauge is not real practical for cornering at high speed, obviously, because the tires, the wheels, not tires, the wheels are very close together, and obviously if you're going around a corner at high speed, it would be easier to tip over. So I don't think we got that to worry about today, but that is why the gauge was set wider when they did standardize rail gauge. So this is just a really nice thing to be able to do while you're in Portland if you happen to be here. from the open car that we rode on the ride from the station down to the end of the line to one of the Pullman cars. And you can hear from the ambient noise what it's like to ride on one of these 19th century Pullman cars. It's a fairly loud ride. It's nothing like the ride that we're used to today on either trains or automobiles. And so you can imagine having to ride for long distances, because these trains probably only ran about 40, 45, 50 miles an hour top speed. And at higher speeds, obviously, they'd be even louder. So you have the creaking of the wood and the thump of the rails and all the ambient noise from the engines. Quite the experience for the uninitiated, but this is what it would have been like in the 19th century, early 20th century perhaps, to ride on these narrow gauge trains here in the United States. But it's a very charming experience to do it today when you don't have to.